No going back now. Hello and welcome back to the Jean May channel. My name is Paula Jean and this is where I share about some of the stuff that I make. In my last video, I showed you a couple of fabrics that I got last year from Lyrical Fabrics. One of them was a beautiful guava colored 100% cotton pointelle knit, and the other one is a printed crinkle rayon, lovely flowers on a black background. And I also shared with you a wrap top that I have that's a ready to wear top that has been overworn, overloved, stretched out, and I really love some of the features on it. So I want to try to make a dupe of that for the pointelle. And then for the crinkle rayon, I am going to be making a skirt using the Milton Pinafore pattern. This is a free pattern designed by Just Patterns for Peppermint magazine. So I'll leave that linked down below. And I actually realized that because I'm doing this in March, I might actually qualify for the So Frugal 24 challenge that's happening over on Instagram. I believe it's hosted by Frugalissima and the Yorkshire Sew Girl. And what's involved in that challenge is using a fabric in your stash with a free pattern to make yourself a beautiful yet frugal new garment. So if I can get this all wrapped up by March 31st and get it posted up there on that day, then I'll qualify for that challenge. So that's a nice little bonus. And as you can tell, I have cut up that old ready-to-wear top, and I think that's all the ado that needs doing, unless, of course, you are interested in the top that I'm wearing, which is the Bronte top by Jennifer Lauren Handmade, and I'll leave that link down below as well. So let me show you where I've gotten to on the pattern. All right, so this is a little bit of an overview of the pattern that I've ended up with. I did use my original top to get the kind of rough structure of the front bodice and the back bodice. I had to do a little bit of futzing because the top was so stretched out. It was looking a little weird in the arm side area, so I kind of adjusted that a little bit. The original did have a bust dart in it, so I put that in. And then once I had the front and back pieces, I drafted the neck bands in the front and the back. And then I have the waistband and the peplum for the back, the front peplum with the facing on it with its corresponding waistband. And then I drafted just kind of a simple long tie, probably longer than what I need, but that's what I'm going to start with. And then for the sleeve, I actually just traced off the sleeve of my Lord Pierre Laine top. And I've been having a lot of luck lately in knit tops with this kind of arm side construction with the kind of the front shoulder forward a little bit. That seems to be fitting me really well these days. So this is what I'm going to use to cut out my muslin, and we'll see where we get to. For my muslin, I'm actually going to be using the rest of this fabric. And if you're a returning viewer, you may recognize this from a jumpsuit that I made last year. I said at the time that I thought that this was going to fall apart in like 6 months. I could not have been more wrong. I have worn it around the house so much. I have worn it to bed a few times when it's been chilly, and because I am a female person of a certain vintage, I don't sleep so great. Maybe some of you can relate. So I toss and turn a little bit. So the fabric has pilled from rubbing up against the sheets and stuff like that, but that's totally to be expected. Other than that, it is held up just fine. So when I do my muslin, I'm going to try to cut it out in a way that this pattern kind of makes sense, because if the sewing goddesses shine on me and this ends up working out just great, then I am going to over dye it and get a wearable muslin out of it. So I made the muslin last night, and people, I am pretty flippin' happy with this. I absolutely love the neckband. It's lying flat just like I like. It's not going to gape open. I love it. And I just have a few little tweaks to make the fit a little bit more precise. So one of the things is that the shoulder seam is kind of angling forward here, and I think that's because I need to take it in the back. And And even when I was looking at the pattern pieces, I was like, that looks a little bit wide. So I kind of thought that I would have to do that. So once I do that, that's going to pull this up and have it sit in the right place. I really love where the back waistband hits. In the front though, it's pulling up a little bit. So I'm going to be moving the bust dart down about 3/8, half an inch, and then I'm going to do a slight full bust adjustment that will give me a little bit more length in the front so that that waistband will be equal all the way around. And then the other thing I think I need to do is adjust the arm side a bit. So I like where the shoulder is hitting, but in the front of the shoulder, I've got a little bit too much fabric here, and I need this seam to kind of come over here a little bit. So that's going to be just a slight adjustment of the arm side in the front, and then maybe a little bit on the sleeve pattern as well. But overall, yeah, I'm just thrilled. I am going to have the knit wrap top of my dreams. I'm hoping to be able to maybe extend the peplum and make a dress at some point. I did sew this with my water soluble thread, so I will be able to take this all apart, and I think I have like a tiny chunk of this fabric left, so I think I will be able to cut 2 more front pieces with the bust dart and the bust length and the front length that makes it the right size. I don't know why I'm having such trouble saying that. I guess I'm just excited. So I think I'll be able to recut the front pieces and reuse these sleeves and this back and everything, and I might get that wearable muslin that I was hoping for. So yeah, if you can't tell, I'm pretty thrilled. So I've got my top pieces all cut out, and I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. Please forgive my very froggy voice. I'm just getting over a little relapse of a flu that I had. But as I mentioned in my last video, this pointelle has quite a lot of stretch, but the recovery isn't so good. And I'm a little bit concerned about that for especially my neckband and the waistband. So this is just a single layer, and I was just figuring out the correct settings for my serger on this. And I have this very, very super lightweight stretch mesh that matches my skin tone fairly well. It's not anything that I would use for lingerie because it's just not heavy enough, but I am going to actually use it sort of similarly as you would use clear elastic in a shoulder seam to kind of stabilize it. I don't want anything that rigid, so I'm going to use this stretch mesh and put it in the seam allowances, and I think I'm actually going to line the neckband pieces and the waistband pieces with it, and I'll just show you what this does. So I've pulled on these several times already, and you can see that as I've pulled this, it kind of extends and stretches a little bit every time, whereas this one I've pulled the same number of times, but it just kind of snaps back a little bit better. So for the neckband and waistband pieces, these are just little tiny examples here. So this is just 2 pieces of the pointelle here that's sewn right sides together, and you know, that kind of does its thing like that. And then for the neckband and waistband pieces, I'm actually going to line the whole thing, kind of uses the stretch mesh as an interlining. Then when I flip it over, and you can see with that, hopefully you can kind of see that, so even with that mesh behind there, I still get that really pretty open work detail because you can barely see the interlining. So then once that's flipped over, that's going to give me a little bit of stability and a lot more resilience in those pieces. And I've already cut my neckband pieces here to kind of show you. So I've sewn them together here at the shoulder seams, and then I've got my facing pieces under there. I also put a little bit of this stretch mesh in that seam line there. So once those are all stitched together, that's kind of what that's gonna look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this around here and then flip it all over. And I've cut the mesh pieces a little bit bigger than the facing pieces because I did find in my experiments that when you do the stitching all around here, it kind of sucks up into the seam, and I don't want this piece of mesh, because it's got more stretch recovery, I don't want it to end up like this when I flip it over. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of extra there, and then when I flip it over, I'll kind of trim it a little bit closer to the piece, and that's the experiment. So just the tiniest not so humble brag about how this neckband turned out with this fabric. I am so happy that this worked. There's my little understitching there, and I have 0 waves on this. My shoulder seams matched up, maybe the best I've ever matched up any seams before, but oh, this was so nerve-wracking, you guys, and I'm so excited to finish this now. Is she happy? Oh yes, she is. Would she make it in this fabric again? Probably not. But you know, there's something kind of satisfying about using a fabric for a garment that technically they shouldn't work together, but you made it work anyway. I'm really thrilled with how the stretch mesh in the bands and in the seams worked, and I think it's going to make this garment last a lot longer, which is kind of what we're all after. It's what I'm after anyway. And I do think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of this in the spring and summer because it's a really great kind of cardigan alternative. And mostly I'm really thrilled with the pattern that I ended up with because I'm already envisioning like a sleeveless version with a skirt attached in a dress. So we'll see where we get to on that. But yeah, I'm going to call this mission accomplished. Very happy with how all of my adjustments turned out. And I think we're good to move on to the skirt. Alrighty, so this is my muslin of the Milton Pinafore. Overall, quite happy with it. The only thing is that in order for the bust darts to sit in the right place on me, it seems like I have to have the skirt sitting fairly high, like it's sort of between my natural waist and my under bust. And that might be the design. It's not like it's uncomfortable or anything like that, so maybe that's what she meant. For me, I think I would prefer it to sit a little tiny bit lower, more toward my natural waist. So I think for eventually when I do the Pinafore version, I'm going to cut a line like right below this V and kind of right above this junction point where it meets the waistband. I'll probably slice it there, add some length. That will give me more length in the dart and in the piece itself, and then it will sit a little bit lower and that will be fine. For this version though, where are my pins? Oh, there they are. So for this version, that's not going to matter because I'm actually not putting the bib. I'm just using the skirt part, and when I pull that down, that sits just fine. So yeah, the only thing I have to do is move the button placket in the back to the center front, and then I think I am ready to cut. Thanks to the shrinkage that happened with this fabric, I am having to do some reconfiguring to make sure that I have enough. This pattern has these really great pocket pieces. This is a one-piece pocket, so I only need to cut 2 of these, but I do need to cut them on the fold. And I could actually, you know, put a seam allowance there, but that kind of defeats the purpose of this style of pocket because once you install it, it installs like that. And I love how there's just a fold line and no seam here, so it eliminates bulk. But that means that I'm not going to be able to use the fold for my center back. So this is my back pattern piece. I've got the fold line for the center back, which is just along the button line here, marked. Normally that's where I would fold this piece back and put it on the fold, but I've also added another line here for a 1/2 inch center back seam allowance, which is what I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to take this section and just fold it and add it to my center front so that I can have my front button placket. Well, this turned into a skirt that I can wear all year round with any number of tops in my wardrobe and any number of shoes in my closet. And who doesn't need one of those? Thank you so much for joining me in this video. And if you're into the sewing and making and DIY scene and you enjoyed this content, please let me know in the comments or give a thumbs up or consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Have a wonderful week. Take great care of yourself and I will see you next time.